Good evening. My name is Joe White, and I am here on behalf of the Masterwork Foundation, which is a group that uh, has for almost 70 years now been a stand for excellence in the arts. And this series that you found is called A Life in the Arts, and it's about wonderful and fascinating people who have made a life in the arts for themselves and we have lots of questions like how'd you get here and what inspires you? So that's what we're here to share with. And tonight I have the privilege of being with Thomas Angels, who is the Commandant of the 5th Connecticut Regiment, which is an organization that's now over 50 years old, which that's just an amazing and wonderful thing in itself.
Mhm.
But this is a group of reenactors. And I've always been fascinated because my background is theater, and I think reenacting is a really interesting form of theater. And actually, I said that to someone I met at your 50th anniversary gala the other day, and he said, "Well,
Okay.
no, this is all about, authenticity." And I said, "Yeah, but see, theater is illusion,
True.
and that's your
Yes.
access point to it. Whereas
Mhm.
in more conventional acting, the access point is trying to recreate the personality of the character.
Okay.
Um, but I don't care how you get there.
There you
It's still
go.
wonderful theater.
Yeah.
Um,
Very
so
good.
Tom and I met at a reenactment at Putnam Memorial Park in Reading, Connecticut, and so I, my first question for pretty much everybody we interview is, um, what brought you here? I suspect there was some love of history somewhere in there as a starting point, but
I would say so. So as a child in an Italian household, when all the relatives came over to see my grandmother, one of their sisters, and the uncles, and then the cousins, we had to sit at the edge of the room and listen to all the stories from the aunts and uncles about the old days. I
mhm,
just thought that was so exciting. It just so made my imagination and all these things. And of course, we had family who served in different wars for different and on different sides. There's some
mhm.
German relatives in both world wars, and depending who was over the house for the holiday to visit. And we just sat there and listened to these elders talk. And I don't know, I felt I could just see that, like I was there. They were so
Mhm.
descriptive and just wonderful. And I've always liked history. My brothers also enjoy it. And we have 10 grandchildren, my wife and I, and we have two of them that do reenacting, and they were at that 50th ball that you were at with your
Mhm.
lovely wife.
Mhm.
And it keeps them busy, keeps them off the cell phones,
Yep.
and teaching them something. And they're learning about, I don't know, the way things were and why where we are today has something to do with where we were then. It's all connected. So,
Well, and your most recent reenactment, which was one that I attended at least the beginning of, one of the things that gives you an appreciation for is uh, what the people who got us here as a nation had to do to get us here as a nation.
mhm.
Because I know that it's all woolen clothes and it's there, but it's still cold. Uh, and,
Yeah, we did an event at the same park on Saturday. Snow on the ground. I think it was 23 when we woke up here in my
yeah,
part of Connecticut to travel there, and it was cold. But once you're moving, that added to it. I mean, you've seen
yeah.
Putnam Park, very rustic, and to have the snow out there with the men dressed in their different uniforms representing different regiments and companies and
Mhm.
cannons and the public. We got to talk about artifacts. Uh, Everyone just thoroughly enjoyed it. And we had an education by a volunteer who led us through the park and explained why Washington put his troops there and the life in that camp at the time. Boy, it was, yeah, very difficult, very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Putnam Park, there's actually another whole thing about Putnam Park, which is that it has significance in American musical history.
Oh,
Uh,
let's
well,
let's hear it.
uh, in well, the guy who Leonard Bernstein described as the Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln of American music was a composer named Charles Ives.
Okay.
And born in Danbury, uh, he was a baseball star at Yale. And
Mhm.
his day job was he ran a major, hugely successful insurance firm in Manhattan and commuted.
Oh boy.
And on the side, he wrote four symphonies and a whole bunch of other orchestral works, dozens of songs. And he passed away in 1954, um, but he was
Okay.
very modern. And but one of his most popular pieces is a piece called Three Places in New England. And the first place in New England is Boston Commons and the St. Gaudens uh, relief statue of the first Black Massachusetts regiment. And
Oh.
it's very ghostly and you're because they were all killed,
Oh.
including their white colonel and
Mm-hmm.
they were killed, I think, in Virginia, and the Confederates refused. Normally, officers were, taken out of the field and buried separately as gentlemen. Because
Really?
the regiment was black, they threw him in a common pit.
Oh, the
Uh,
Civil War. Civil War.
yeah,
Really?
uh,
Wow.
but so that's the first place. But the second place is Putnam Park because in the late 1900s, it was a place where you went to have picnics if you lived in
Mm-hmm.
Danbury and or
Oh,
Reading.
okay.
And so it is brass bands and uh, it's very modern sounding because he loved the notion that in a on a field like that there might be two bands playing and
Oh,
they're
I
playing
see.
in different
Sure.
keys and they're playing in different time signatures and the
Okay.
whole thing is this kind of glorious mess. Um,
Yes, yes.
and then
Organized mess. Yeah.
yeah, the final piece is called the Housatonic River at Stockbridge, and
Oh, beautiful there. Sure.
yeah, and it's lovely. It's only about 15 minutes long. It's wonderful, but it it's a little crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's delightful. And anyway, but Ives is our in the world of classical music. Ives is our local boy who made good. So,
Oh, yes, sure.
and I'm
Yeah.
told that he's remembered in insurance industry museums and
Mm.
publications, and they don't ever mention his composing.
Oh, really? Oh
And
boy.
in the on the music side, they'll sort of parenthetically mention the fact that he had this day job. So,
Yeah.
but
Wonderful. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
any rate, but and so what I was thinking. So all right, so you started with family stories,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's a long way from stories of the old country to much older stories of
Oh,
of the
true.
birth of our country. And so I don't know what drew you there.
Well, I think uh, just a love of history, but in 86, I went to the state's 300th birthday. There
Right.
was a encampment on the old state house, and Governor O'Neill was there. And there were multiple groups, a German, some British, American, and a French group. And
Mhm.
we walked around and they just saw a young man at the age of 25 who probably had the ability to get away and do things. And they just, the 5th Connecticut, I met them, the friendliest group. We still are a very nice group, great men, fired the musket. And that was it. I joined that year, and it's been since about 38 years now.
That's exactly what would do it, isn't it?
Yeah. The
You get to act.
uniforms, the music. Yeah. It was like
Yeah.
stepping back in time and like being on a movie set. I was there and you can
Mhm.
see it, touch it, smell it. You could hear the commands given. You could hear the muskets and the yells. It was just quite an experience. Yes, if I had the chance, I would love to not act or do stand up, but I would like to be someone that works behind the scenes at our local Catholic high school one
Mhm.
day when I fully retire. I'd love to be a part. I'm amazed by what it takes to do that. And in reenacting for a nice event like the one you and your lovely bride saw, there's a lot of organization behind it. And then there's the show
Oh,
part of it. How do we make this exciting for the public, for the reenactors? What's going to work? What's going to look good? What's not? So there's a lot to do if you're into that, which I am. I
it,
think it's exciting.
I was going to say it's the old iceberg metaphor, that there's the 10% that you see,
Oh, sure.
and there's all of that other work. And
Yeah.
thing. So what I'd like to do right now is to share some pictures.
Oh, very good.
And let's do that because folks can see what we're talking about.
Excellent, Jess.
And here and there. And so this is one of when at the first time that we met, the this
Hmm.
placard was on a tent,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah,
which was commemorating the first one. And those are a couple of I'm assuming they're reproduction muskets. I wouldn't. I'm not sure. An historical organization that I'm a part of, we have an old musket.
you do. Very
I don't think we would ever let anybody fire it because
Yeah, that's correct. No,
I'm not
you
sure
wouldn't.
they would survive.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
those are reproduction British Brown Bess muskets, which Americans had
oh yeah.
because we were English citizens there until 17 July 4th,
Hmm.
1776. So it was common, and we were given muskets because we were in the militia, and once or twice a year we would drill. So the British made sure we had some familiarity with being a soldier, even as a local militia, like a National Guard today.
Well,
So yeah,
yeah.
reproduction. But yeah, that's our sign. Someone carved that. I don't know how many years ago, and
Mm,
we try to keep things. We try to hold on to the stuff that the members donate or craft with their
right.
own hands for the sake of demonstrations. Yeah.
Anyway, so um, I've got to move the cursor over there. And okay, and there you are.
Yeah.
One of the I find the most enjoyable parts of these reenactments are you holding a non-period microphone, but
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
the thing that is just wonderful is to see the detail and care that reenactors put into recreating the people of it's going to be close to 200, well, it's going to be 250 years ago. um, I'm
Yeah.
told that we all need to practice saying the word semi-quincentennial.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Latin. That's why Latin's not around, I think.
yes, 200,
Uh, but you have
250 years ago.
Yeah. You have an officer there on the left, and you see the epaulette on his shoulder, and he's talking to the public, the event that you were there.
Yeah.
And then there's a artilleryman there, an officer in the center,
Hmm.
and on his stomach, that little box contains the fuses that he would put in
Right.
the barrel to ignite the powder and the charge. And then what is in his hands, that weird little object with the rope, is called a linstock. So they would take rope and treat it with saltpeter and a couple other things, and it would burn very slowly once it was lit. And then you have a British soldier behind him from one of the regiments. I believe that's the 38th of Foot, and they wore yellow facings. And if you could make them, if you're for Americans when you were supplied with them, the facings denote that you're from certain regiments.
Right.
And then on the field, one, it's of course a sense of pride. I'm a part of a bigger group than just myself. And other than that, you can also see for officers where their units are at a distance by the color of their facings and uniforms
Yeah.
or their hats. And then a young musician. We have a lot of young people getting involved in the hobby now. And until you're 16, you can't carry a musket and portray a soldier on the battlefield there when we do demonstrations, but you can certainly play music and sometimes carry a flag. So
Right.
it's great. These kids are it. I thought it would be easy. I've tried the fife. It's not, and I
No,
want to try the
no,
drum
it's
because
not.
as I get older, I don't want to carry a musket.
Right.
And I learned that that's not that easy. It seems it, but so these young people, they devote their time just like any other young kid in school with
Mm,
their bands. So
right.
exciting. Yeah.
All right, and so this is your predecessor as commandant,
Yes. Yeah.
leading. So, and I'm you can't always tell just by the color of the uniforms which
Correct.
side they're on, but I'm assuming these guys are all colonials.
Yes. Yeah. And what's interesting is the commander, he has that gold semicircular object on his neck,
Hmm.
and that's called a gorget. And that actually came from the age of the knights when your manservant dressed you with your armor, your back plate, your chest plate, your helmet came over your head. Well, the object was to, if you were going to try to, someone was going to try to disarm you or take you out, would be to push the knight's helmet back like that, so the neck would be exposed. So they came up with and they probably always had it, a small piece of metal that would be tied around your neck to cover the flesh part of your neck that was not covered by armor. And then years later, it was, of course, maintained and kept as an ornament, and it denotes an officer in authority.
Hmm.
Americans didn't have gold very often. British certainly did silver, but Americans could have silver and pewter that was polished, highly polished, so it looked great. And that is a man, he's got a spontoon, that long pole in his hand. So on the battlefield between those two objects, the sash around his waist. If you're lost from your unit, you look for a man with those objects, and he hopefully will tell you where to go and what to do, which is what officers seem to like to do.
Okay.
So, and the
Yes.
men behind it, the Connecticut group has the blue uniform with the red facings, and then you see the smaller gentleman between the two men, and he's the sixth Connecticut, and they have a blue uniform with white facings,
Okay.
and that denotes a different group. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's important to know who's on whose side and who you're supposed to be
yeah,
shooting at.
pretty
So
basic. Yeah, that's
yes.
about the basic part of it. Yeah.
So and this is you know this I love this photo. It is not the crispest photo, but um, the thing I really like about it is it shows the variety of the different uniforms that different units would wear. And so I don't know, you can tell us some of them at any rate.
Yeah, just a little bit of it. So the gentleman from the Fifth Connecticut is an officer. He has the spontoon,
Yeah.
and that's used to. It's held higher, and you see that above the musket, so you can always know where your officer is. And then you have a few men who are from Lebanon Militia, wonderful group, and they are militia, so they're dressed in basically what civilians would have worn at the time. And then you have a gentleman from the Sixth Connecticut, blue and white. You skip a couple. There's a gentleman, blue and red, from our group. Another gentleman, interesting, young man in his early 20s. He joined when he was a teenager, and he's dressed as a naval impression. So he's got the baggy pants. It escapes me the name, so you can kick them off if you have to. And then another Sixth Connecticut. And there's another officer with a very tall spontoon and militia. What he's wearing is what the common man would wear in the towns and villages and cities of colonial Connecticut. So you see, nothing really matches. The only thing Connecticut, as a provision state, tried to do was make sure, and Washington insisted everyone had at least a regimental, even if all your what's called small clothes versus that's how they described your breeches, your pants, your
Right.
shirt, and your vest. Well, it could be almost any color, but at least to be professional going against the best army in the world, he felt you've got to have a regimental, regardless of color. It'll make you feel like a soldier and you'll look like a soldier.
So
Otherwise,
is the spontoon also used as a defense against cavalry? I would do that would seem to be
yeah, not in this time, no. But what they could do is both men, right and left, if the men were marching forward and they weren't, uh, when you march, you're supposed to touch the man's elbow next to you, right and left.
okay.
Otherwise, you start veering one way and you take 5 guys, 50 guys in the wrong direction.
Yes.
They would hold that in front of them to make sure everyone stayed in a straight line. And if they had a turn, which was called a wheel, where the gentleman on the end would basically just
Right.
take steps in place, well, they would hold that and guide them in to keep the formation organized because to fire the muskets effectively in the 18th century, in the 1770s, you had to fire in mass because they weren't accurate.
Yes.
So everyone had to work and they're farmers and they're men from the city who had very little experience with guns, hunting. So it wasn't a professional army in the beginning. It became very good at the end, but these were the tools they used to keep the men organized and try to get them as effective as they could be going against the King's forces, which were and German forces, which were fantastic. Yeah, they're very
Yeah.
professional.
Well,
So that's
but we had a German officer at who started at Valley Forge, who started the process of getting these guys professional, and
yes,
so
yes, he did. Von
so
Steuben. Yeah, yeah.
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 Anyway, the so and this is again from that reenactment in November, uh,
Mm,
and the I tried, I just never didn't quite catch one where we could get the cannon actually firing. Um,
okay.
the thing that is, cell phone cameras are wonderful because it's always with you.
Yes.
And it's not something else you have to carry around to take pictures. But on the other hand, it's not the same as having a thing with a tripod that
Okay.
you're
Is that
prepared
what you
to.
used that day? A cell
No, I
phone?
just use
Yeah.
a cell phone. Yeah,
Oh, you
and
did. Well, they're pretty good for that. Yeah.
I was going to say I'm
So,
pleased with the focus and the
mhm.
crispness of them. Uh, but if you're really looking to document an event, you would take many more pictures than I did.
Okay.
I'm terrible. I am the worst meeting secretary in the world because I
Uh,
want to participate. And
oh,
if
I
you're
see. Yeah.
participating, you're not writing. But the same thing here. If you're participating, you're not recording. So
Well, it must have been overwhelming. The stimuli of seeing. I don't know if this is the first one for you've been to, but to see all the uniforms and that
well,
cannon is absolutely wonderful. That's an
yeah.
exciting thing all by itself. People would come out just to see these men fire
Well,
that gun and describe it.
Well,
Exciting.
my first serious experience of this, um, I live in Ridgefield, Connecticut, which is the site of the only inland battle of the Revolution in
You are
Connecticut.
correct.
Everything else was along the coastline,
Mhm.
and about every 5 years, sometimes I think it's because it takes 5 years to finish paying off all the money you spent on the last one, but
Yeah.
it's probably true. But
Yeah.
we reenact the battle, and in fact, I have a picture later and that was my first experience of reenactment on that scale,
Oh, I
and
see.
which
Yeah.
is so that kind of put the bug in the back of my head that I needed to talk to some reenactors. So that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Ellen, this is a group. We were invited to, and we just stuck our heads in because it was your party. But the my wife and I attended the 50th anniversary of the founding of your group. Uh,
Yeah. You
so
said you were coming, and lo and behold, there you were. It was great
yeah,
to see you. Yeah.
we had no the you guys were re I don't know what the word is, but recreated the Fifth
Hmm.
Connecticut for the bicentennial in uh,
For
1976, and so
Yeah. Yeah. We
and
formed in 74, and
yeah,
yeah, it's one of the oldest reenacting groups in the country for Revolutionary War reenacting. I
mm,
got to point out that my granddaughter is wearing, she's the youngest one there, with
hmm
the big smile and the purple. She's wearing my wife's gown. She's 17, and
okay,
she loves it. For her, there's some acting involved because she's very dramatic. I'm sure her parents will tell you how dramatic she can be at home. But for us, she's a just a doll, and we just love her dearly. And the dressing up is she has no problem wearing these clothing. I'm sure there's plenty of her friends that would never go anywhere near that, but she looks absolutely marvelous. And of course, it makes her look older. She did
hmm
the line dancing. The harp players on the bottom left, Linda, wonderful people. A couple of the new young ladies just joined last year.
hmm
Drummers on the right, my good friend Tom, husband of Linda, is right there. Known him for 30 something years, and a couple other new gentlemen. And the band is in the background. And
okay. The
the orchestra. A
no,
great time. Great time.
yeah, this well, and I'm I am on in an organization that's a family historical organization, and I am so envious that you have young people joining and carrying on the tradition because we struggle with that, and
Oh, sure. Yeah,
we need to get better at it too. But
it's
anyway,
hard.
oh yeah, but I don't know, but this I mean, I'm somebody who's looking on at this from the outside at the moment.
Hmm.
I mean, I've acted and directed and stuff, but many years ago. But I this this has to be fun. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of trouble. It's
Yeah.
a lot of research, and to because I keep hearing stories about the scrupulousness of about accuracy and but it also just looks like fun. And
Well,
so,
there's everyone has different levels of interest. So there are
mhm.
some people they come out and it's like, wow, you really probably shouldn't wear that. So next time, try to get something a little more that at least looks a little more correct, period correct.
Mhm.
But we learn from each other. Some people
Yeah.
are really into it and they study it and they love it. Others are out there for the camaraderie. They're out there because they like to cook. 18th century, and we it's a big thing for us is cooking
Yeah.
18th century. And within that, some ladies spin and weave and they make fabric and they love sewing. The two young ladies on the left love to sew. I'm
Mhm.
surprised women in their mid 20s that love that they do. And
Oh,
so I mean, and there's levels of authenticity. We go by good, better, best. You got to
okay.
at least be good. If you're
Yeah.
anything below that, you can't come out and play with us.
Right.
And then
I
you
was
take
going
it
to
to an
say,
extreme.
yeah, I think they I have a picture coming up though of the non-military side of these reenactments, which is
Hmm.
and I don't remember the order, but so yeah, there it is. That's the one.
Oh,
This is an encampment picture, and so this is a group who are doing all the other things that you would have to do in a military camp to keep the whole thing going. And I will say that I cropped the picture because just to the left of the muskets that you see on the side, there was a modern baby carriage
oh,
in
I
the
see. Very good.
photograph. But
Very good.
it's, here are people doing all the things that people would do to support the soldiers and the effort because
Very good. Absolutely, you're right. Yeah,
yeah, because
that's
without food it doesn't work.
yeah. And the fifth is we're one of the largest groups and financially very stable. You don't have to bring your own food. The fifth has someone that would coordinate lunch or breakfast or dinner.
Hmm.
And we did a pork roast at Sturbridge Village from a few years back,
Hmm.
but we did a 10-pound pork roast just to try it. Cooked it outside in a reflector oven. One of our members knows how to do it. He cooks in the winter.
I saw a photograph of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I sent you one. So I mean, we have to have food and we have
Yes.
to have good food. Sometimes they're 18th century recipes. We try to do that, but we're not crazy about it. I mean, there could be goulash, there could be
Yeah.
depends, ham and cheese sandwiches if it's a small event, but
Right.
and that encampment is not really what the common soldier had. He probably had almost none of that equipment except for permanent camps like at Putnam Park um, for at that encampment in 1778. But we need comfort. I mean, we're all used to that, as you know, right?
Yeah.
So
Of
we
course.
want to be able to sit and not on the ground. We want to have something decent to drink and eat and get out of the sun because we all have real jobs to go to on Monday morning. So
Yes.
we try to make it easy and fun for members. Every organization has to find you have to give something back to the membership who
Of
take the
course.
time, as you said, to do the research and the sewing or the purchasing
Yeah.
and a lot of fun. And we're fortunate as a family group. We have a lot of kids and a lot of ladies of different ages. And I like personally, after all the years of carrying a musket, I like, as you mentioned earlier, what the women and kids do in camp. I
Right.
think the demonstrations of the period arts from the period, and I think that's what I really enjoy. And I'm really liking cooking. So I've been making bread and pies, not from scratch, but I've been making them, cooking them in a Dutch oven. and
Hmm.
it's just the greatest thing. Yeah,
Right.
it's something I can do within the hobby that I really enjoy. So
Okay. I'm so this was actually one of the more impressive parts of the November event was this guy, and this is two photographs. This man was reenacting. He
hmm
was a French hussar, and the only thing that he said was maybe not entirely as it would have been in, say, 1777, was that the horse was bigger. His horse is more typical of later war horses from the 19th century, uh,
okay.
because the horse would have been smaller. But man, that was a big horse. Uh,
It was big, and he was impressive looking, wasn't he? Huh?
oh, just wonderful.
Amazing.
And he galloped around the field a couple of times, and I mean, you could feel it in the act. I
Sure.
we're in some ways we're kind of divorced from that thing where you could actually feel what else is going on in in through your feet. You could
hmm
actually, because uh, that sound and those hooves really do travel thing. You see people in movies, putting their ear to the ground. Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
That
you could.
works.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah,
and
that was impressive. He must be a
yeah.
lot of effort, I would think, you know?
Oh, really? Now,
Mhm.
this is where I first encountered this on this scale, and
Okay.
this is the British contingent, and this is downtown Ridgefield, and this is pretty much exactly where the battle was fought, is what is now our Main Street.
hmm
And the one revelation of when we were up at the reenactment in November was because uh, I use this as a backdrop for myself on Zoom on occasion.
Oh,
Um,
great.
and but I keep, why are some of them green? And I wasn't aware that that meant,
They were Rangers. Yeah.
but they were Brits, they were Americans fighting for the British.
Yeah, they were loyalists. Yeah.
Yes, and
It was really the nation's first civil war, Joseph, you know?
yeah, really,
Yes. We were divided then. Sure.
yeah, we have some family history about that too, because
Do you?
one of my wife's ancestors, or well, somewhere on the family tree, was an attorney in New Haven, and he actually settled the Benedict Arnold's properties,
Oh my goodness.
and
Really?
then left for Canada.
Oh, yeah, a lot of them had to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you had
uh,
to get out of your house. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so there's that, and lest you think that this is all about the American Revolution. Uh, Here's
Yeah.
Tom in the uniform of a British air raid warden in
Correct.
World War II.
World War
And
II. Yeah.
the guy there next to you is a French soldier, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. He just started the impression of 3, 4 years, I guess, and it took him all this time to slowly acquire and learn from others. It's a
Yeah.
hobby, so he only has so much time he wants to put into it. But no one else there was dressed as a World War II French infantryman, and he has like a light machine gun, and that was his pride and joy, finding
Mm,
something that is actually authentic. World War II stuff is fun because it's tanks and airplanes, and they're flying still, and you can, as you said,
right.
they rumble by you. It's I only do a couple, 3 shows a year with a bunch of great guys, and we don't have to run around carrying muskets and getting hot and sweaty. I did get to meet Winston Churchill. I've got a great photograph of me and Winston with his cigar, his
Mm,
derby, and doing the victory thing. And it is right next to a Sherman tank. And it was awesome. That reenactor looked just like Winston Churchill. It was a
okay.
lot of fun. It was just fun. It's a lot.
Mm. So the well, anyway, this has been a just wonderful conversation, and thank you
Well,
so much for sharing with us your passion and this really lovely thing that you create. Because I mean, there is a sense. that I get of what this provides you and the other people
Hmm.
who are the reenactors. But it's a really wonderful thing to be at these events and you know, as a spectator, because
You
you
enjoy it, yeah.
actually get a sense of what that must have been like. And I don't know. When I was a kid, there was a TV program called You Are There. Uh,
Oh, my goodness, sure.
yeah, Walter
Uh,
Cronkite was the narrator, and
oh my goodness,
they would
yes.
recreate historical incidents, and except that they would have in effect modern newsmen, modern media people going in and interviewing people.
Yeah,
Uh, but it is this that sense that you know we can get. Um, you know, it's one thing to read it in a book. It's another thing to actually be able to visualize it this way. And thank you for all this wonderful work you do. And thank you for being with us this evening. I should briefly talk about Masterwork before we close. And the only thing I'm going to say is that Masterwork has been a stand for for excellence in the arts since its inception in the mid 1950s, almost 70 years old. And
well,
our primary work now is in encouraging both community organizations we through small community grants, and then we have what we call a premier award, which we give every year or two to somebody. And the idea is that it's enough to make a difference in a career. And
wonderful.
so we've had some wonderful stories, and we've given three of those awards so far. And boy, we got lucky with the last one because the last one, the lady who we gave the award to, currently has two shows on Broadway and
Wonderful.
A Tony nomination. So
Fantastic.
we picked
Fantastic.
somebody good. Anyway, thank you so much, Tom. And this again, this has been A Life in the Arts, and we please look at our YouTube channel, and you'll find this is the best job. I get to meet the best people and
I
just
bet you
spend
do. It's
great time
fun.
with them. So anyway, have a good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Well, in that interview, Tom and I neglected to add one more important thing, which is that if you have an educational group, a classroom, or a social organization that would love a visit from one of these marvelous reenactors, please check out History Without Walls, and there'll be a link in the comments. So that's all we had to add because we left that out. And join us again for another Life in the Arts in the near future.